Healing rarely feels like relief at first. More often, it feels like you're falling apart right when you thought you were finally doing something right. Emotions surface that you thought you had already handled. Old doubts get louder. Your sense of stability weakens instead of strengthening. This is the part no one warns you about. Healing can temporarily remove the structure that was holding everything together. And when that structure disappears, it can feel terrifyingly personal, like you've broken something inside yourself. But what's happening here isn't collapse, it's exposure. It's the moment when what was held down finally has room to move. You might notice it in small, confusing moments. You start setting boundaries, and suddenly guilt shows up where it never used to. You slow down, and instead of peace, anxiety rushes in. Conversations feel heavier. Decisions you once made automatically now feel strangely difficult. Even your emotions seem less predictable. Tears closer to the surface, patience thinner than before. From the outside, nothing dramatic may have changed. You're still showing up, still functioning. But inside, it feels like the ground shifted without warning. That contrast is what makes this so unsettling. You expected healing to bring clarity, not friction, stability, not sensitivity. And when that doesn't happen, it's easy to assume something has gone wrong, or that you weren't as okay as you thought. But this experience is far more common and far more human than it's usually acknowledged. What often gets missed in moments like this is that the discomfort isn't random. There's a pattern underneath it, even if you can't see it clearly yet. Something internal is shifting its role. The ways you used to stay steady, like distraction, emotional numbness, overfunctioning, or staying busy, start losing their effectiveness. Not because they were wrong, but because they're no longer needed in the same way. When that happens, the mind and body don't immediately replace them with calm or confidence. They create space first, and that space can feel like emptiness, confusion, or instability. It's easy to misread this as regression. But what's actually happening is a transition point, one where old structures loosen before new ones take shape. The logic of it isn't visible yet, but it's already in motion. What if the feeling of falling apart isn't the opposite of healing, but part of how healing actually works? We're taught to measure progress by how composed we look, how well we hold ourselves together. But healing often removes the pressure to perform stability. When that pressure lifts, what shows up isn't chaos. It's what was postponed: the confusion, the grief, the anger, the tenderness that didn't feel safe to feel before. Interpreting this moment as "something is wrong with me" adds unnecessary blame to an already vulnerable process. A more accurate frame is this: you're no longer organizing your life around avoidance. You're allowing experience instead of managing it away. That shift can feel destabilizing because it changes your internal reference point, but it also marks a move from control to contact, from surviving your inner world to actually relating to it. Here's why this phase feels so intense. For a long time, your system learned to stay organized by holding certain emotions down or pushing them aside. That wasn't a flaw, it was adaptive. But when healing begins, that internal tension relaxes. And when pressure releases, whatever was compressed starts to expand. It's similar to opening a tightly packed closet. Things don't come out neatly at first. They spill. In psychology, this isn't seen as breakdown, but as decompression. The mind and body are recalibrating how much they need to contain versus express. Until that balance settles, everything can feel louder and less coordinated. The discomfort comes not from new pain, but from previously muted experiences finally having space. What feels like disorganization is often your system learning a new, more honest rhythm. There's a part of this process that's hard to admit. For some time, the version of you that had it together was built on staying slightly disconnected from yourself. You might have taken pride in being low maintenance, resilient, or emotionally contained. That identity worked. It earned approval, kept relationships stable, helped you function. But as healing begins, that version starts to feel harder to maintain, and that can trigger resistance. Not because you want to suffer, but because falling apart threatens the image of who you believed you had to be safe or valued. Letting go of that identity can feel like losing competence or strength. Yet what's actually being challenged isn't your capability. It's the idea that staying intact required staying distant from your own experience. This is usually the moment that feels the most destabilizing. You don't just feel emotional, you feel unsure of who you are while those emotions are moving. Things that once defined you no longer feel solid, but nothing new has fully formed yet. Relationships can feel strained because you're less predictable. Decisions take longer because your old instincts don't automatically override your feelings anymore. Even your sense of direction can blur. It's not just discomfort, it's disorientation. The hardest part is that this phase doesn't come with clear feedback. There's no obvious proof that healing is happening, only the sense that your inner world is less organized than before. That ambiguity can be frightening. Without context, it's easy to interpret this stage as losing yourself, rather than passing through a necessary reordering of how you relate to yourself. If you're in this place right now, pause for a moment. Not to fix anything, not to figure it all out, just to notice that you're here, listening, and still engaged with yourself. That matters more than it might feel like. Recognizing that something is shifting inside you is already a form of stability, even if it doesn't feel calm yet. You're not behind, you're not failing at healing, you're in contact with it. This phase can feel lonely because it's mostly internal, invisible to others, but you're not alone in it. Many people pass through this exact territory without having words for it. Having language doesn't remove the discomfort, but it does soften the isolation. And sometimes that's enough to help you stay present instead of pulling away from yourself again. What you're experiencing is often called emotional reorganization. It's the phase where old coping structures loosen before new internal patterns are fully formed. Instead of automatically suppressing or bypassing discomfort, your system is renegotiating how it relates to emotion, uncertainty, and self-trust. This is why feelings come in waves and reactions feel less predictable. The pattern tends to repeat in cycles: awareness, destabilization, brief relief, then another layer surfacing. Not because healing isn't working, but because it's moving deeper. Emotional reorganization has a function. It helps you integrate experiences that were previously managed from a distance. The goal isn't to feel steady all the time, but to build a capacity to stay connected while things shift. Once you recognize this pattern, the chaos starts to feel less personal and more process-driven. There is a quieter kind of hope inside this stage, even if it doesn't feel reassuring yet. The fact that things are reorganizing means they're no longer frozen in the same positions. Over time, this allows for a different kind of stability, one that isn't built on holding yourself together, but on being able to move without falling apart. That doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually, through small moments of staying present when you would have shut down before. The falling apart feeling slowly gives way to something more flexible. Not constant calm, but resilience that includes emotion instead of fighting it. Healing doesn't restore the old version of you. It creates room for a more responsive one. And while this phase feels uncertain, it's also temporary. Reorganization, by nature, leads somewhere new. During this phase, the most helpful shifts are often subtle rather than dramatic. Instead of asking yourself how to stop feeling unsettled, it can help to ask how to stay gently connected while things move. That might mean slowing your responses instead of forcing clarity, letting emotions pass without immediately assigning meaning to them, creating small pockets of predictability, simple routines, familiar environments, so your system has something steady to lean on while it reorganizes internally. Naming what you're feeling, even privately, helps reduce the sense of chaos. These practices don't rush the process, they support it. They remind your system that change doesn't require collapse. Over time, this kind of integration teaches you that falling apart isn't something to prevent. It's something you can move through without abandoning yourself. If healing feels like falling apart first, it's because something real is finally being reorganized. What once held you together through avoidance is giving way to a more honest internal structure. That shift can feel unsettling, but it isn't a sign of regression. It's a sign of contact. You don't need to rush this phase or fix yourself out of it. Small steps of self-compassion matter here more than clarity. If any part of this process resonated, leave a like on this video. You might reflect on which moment felt most familiar: the instability, the identity shift, or the quiet relief of understanding it differently. You're welcome to share that below if it feels supportive. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive more content like this. Thanks for staying with yourself through this. See you next time.